Good morning. Hi, it's Tracy at TierraCast. It's been a little while since we did a live stream, a demo. Actually, I don't think we've done one since we launched our woodland collection late in September. So it's been a little while. We've just been super busy and haven't had time to keep the weekly live streams on the schedule. So much other stuff going on. So we're finally kind of at a breathing spot. So I thought that I would demo first from all the designs that we did for the woodland product launch, including 3 new kits. So I thought we would do the Fern and Thistle Bracelet first. It's so far proving very, very popular, and it is available as a kit, but also, of course, as always, you can download the projects from our inspiration section on the website. And so I did put that link in the comments. So hopefully that's right there handy for you to download this project if you wish. So the kit's great, of course, because it comes with everything you need. It's got some leather cord. It's got our beautiful new Fern Link, which this is just a hit out of the ballpark. So thank you to our product development manager, Kirsten, for coming up with that, because people are absolutely loving it. And then there's a beautiful Thistle Button that's included with this design. And then the rest of the components are some 6mm gemstone beads, and again the 2mm round cord, and then some nylon cord for doing the ladder stitch. That's what the technique that this bracelet shows is a version of ladder stitch that's super popular. You guys have had to have seen lots of bracelets over the last 10 years or so using, maybe not quite that long, but it's been a while, using ladder stitch, and it can be done in a couple of different ways. I'm going to show we're going to be weaving from both ends of the cord. I'm seeing some people popping in. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Landa. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Leslie. So I'm going to switch my camera so we can get started. So what you need to make this design is, as I said, one of the Fern Links. They're so graceful. They're about 1.5 inches long, and I love them. I love the way they came out. Our little Thistle Button, just adorable. Focus, please. So cute. And then a couple of jump rings. I've got our largest oval jump rings. They're about, maybe it says it on the project sheet. The inside diameter of those jump rings is 5 by 3.5mm. So they're nice and roomy. You also need some nylon cord. You can use Ceylon or whatever else you have. You don't want it too thick, because what we're doing is we're going to be weaving from both sides of whatever bead you use. You want to find about a 6mm bead. The bead that's included in the kit is a pretty 6mm rhyolite stone. I thought today that we would try some fire polished check glass. So about 6mm. You could certainly do this with a larger bead. It's just going to make your whole band a little bit wider, and then the 2mm cord. So it's been so long since I've done a demo. I feel like not sure I want to use that one. It's certainly an option, but because I'm going to be switching to a step out that uses this cord, I think I'll stick with this cord. You need 48 inches. I'm off camera because I have a measuring tape taped to the front of my work table. So I'm just measuring 48 inches of cord. And what I'm going to do to start this is put a little, now you could use a needle here. You could use a big eye needle or something like that if you prefer. But the trick is getting 2 passes of this cord through the hole of one bead So you do want to make sure whatever beads you use, you're going to be able to do that. You're going to have success going back and forth between the two beads. What I am going to do is kind of make needles. So to do that, I'm trimming both ends of the cord at an angle. I'm going to take some super glue. A brush on would be handy here. I happen to have this bottle of super new glue, so that's what I'm going to use. You just want to brush, kind of wipe a little bit along about a half an inch of the end of your cord, and you do have to get a little bit of glue on your fingers here doing this. I'm sorry, it's just part of the mess. So if you saw what I did, I just kind of went along both ends of the cord and I just kind of twisted and wiped off the excess glue. So then what happens then is just the remaining glue on there just kind of stiffens it and it'll keep it from fraying while I'm using it. So that's how I prep my cord that I'm going to be stitching with. Let's get this out of the way. I'm going to undo this so you can kind of see what the construction is like. It's pretty simple. I'm going to use 20 inches of a 2mm round cord, a leather cord. You could certainly use any other cord you like. Whenever using a leather cord, I try to give it a little pre-stretching. So I'm really just kind of pulling on it. I think that that's a good idea when using leather cord because otherwise it can stretch out later as your design is done and you're wearing it around and all of a sudden not all of a sudden, but at some point you realize it's quite a bit roomier than it used to be. And it may be because your cord has stretched a little bit. So I always try to pre-stretch a little bit. And I think I went through these already. It's been so long since I've done a demo, I feel a little out of practice. So I feel like this might be clumsy. I hope you guys will bear with me. Hello, Terry. Hello, Lorraine. Thank you guys and Kathy from Greenville, Texas. Thanks everyone for joining me. The components, the fern, the button, and of course our jump rings come in all the finishes. We have silver, antique copper, antique gold, and then our brass ox. So the original we did in silver. I thought today I would use the brass ox. And to get started, get that out of the way, maybe get that out of the way a little bit. I've got my 48 inches of nylon cord prepped. I've got 20 inches of leather cord prepared. And the first thing I'm going to do is fold my cord in half. It's helpful to have a clipboard or a macrame board for this project, any kind of stitching project. That just kind of to help keep things, make it a little more, I don't know what the word is, efficient, easier. What I'm doing is I folded the cord in half and I'm going to take just the end of it and I'm clipping it. I don't happen to have a clipboard handy, so I use these beading mats and I sometimes just kind of anchor them to a piece of thick poster board. And I use those constantly for work surfaces that I can move around because these beading mats, as you know, are just floppy blanket material. So by attaching them to a piece of poster board, then it makes them nice little portable surfaces. So that's what I'm clipping it to. I don't happen to have a clipboard handy. Another option, and this happened, I just recently demoed this project or taught a class actually at the JTV Experience. And I didn't have clipboards and I didn't have mats with boards under them. So what we did is we just ended up taping this part of the design directly to our table surface. And that works okay too. So if you don't have a clipboard or something like this, don't worry about it. You can just use some tape and get creative with your work surface. The next thing I'm going to do is take my nylon cord and I'm just going to thread that underneath. Bring it to the center. It doesn't have to be exact because, you know, you've got 48 inches, should be plenty of cord for this design. And then I'm going to wrap the cord around those two strands a few times, 3 or 4. What I'm doing is just creating the little wrap at the top that will hold the cords together, and then will also give me my weaving cord. So I've wrapped it around a few times, and that's kind of designer's choice, however many wraps you want to go there. And I'm moving this, the whole wrap, up close to the top of that, of my cords. I don't need this little loop. This is not a button loop. What happens with this loop is it gets attached to the fern. So it doesn't need to be very long in the original design. It's just maybe slightly more than 1/4 of an inch. You can certainly make it longer. Just remember to take that into consideration with for the final length of your bracelet. The button loop is down here at the other end. So this loop does not need to be big. So I'm sliding all this up and pulling it kind of tight. And then I'm just going to secure that with a double overhand knot or a square knot, whatever's easier for you. I always find square knots just confusing. I don't know why. So just one overhand knot and a second overhand knot. And tie that nice and tight. I thought that these check glass beads would be fun to use. They're just a fire polish, pretty check glass bead. What you may need, no matter what bead you're using, kind of depends, probably not so much with gemstones, but I've found that with these fire polish check glass beads, that a bead reamer was a good idea because there's some coating that makes these so pretty, right? But it can kind of clog up the ends. So a bead reamer is a good idea to save the frustration of not being able to get your cords through there. I will, of course, try to keep an eye on comments, you guys, but if I don't see them, I'm not ignoring you. I'm looking down at my demo surface and I don't always see the comments as they pop up. But I am still seeing lots of people. Someone's here, Tinka's here from Germany. Wow, I have no idea what time it is there, but thank you so much for joining me. And Janine is here and is saying she loves TierraCast products, and that's what we love to hear. But do answer, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And if I don't get to them while I'm demoing, I will be looking at them later, and I'll answer your question later. And we also are streaming live. We're streaming live on our Facebook page, and we're also streaming live on YouTube. So if you're here with me on YouTube, thank you. We do appreciate that. All right, so I've given at least a handful of these a little bit of prep with my reamer. And up here we have our wrap and our knot. So to start the ladder stitch process, my cords are sitting up on top of my threads are sitting here on top of the leather cord. So I'm just going to wrap those both around the outside of the leather strands so that they're sitting inside. They're sitting in between. They've wrapped around the outside and now they're sitting in between. And now I'm going to start weaving my beads on. So how that happens is I'm taking one side of the cord and going through one side of the bead. And then I'm taking the other cord and coming through the other side. And if you've got enough glue on there, when you're adding glue to the ends of your thread, the trick is not to let the glue sit there and saturate the cord, because that just makes the thread kind of thick. So you don't really want to let it saturate and get super thick. You want that thread to stay thin. So that's why I kind of wiped it off so quickly when I added that glue on there. So I've got my first bead in there. I threaded through one from one side and then the other side, and then I just pulled the threads away from each other and it tucked it up there nicely in between the cords. And then I've done the same thing with the threads. I'm wrapping around and in between the two leather cords. And then I repeat my adding a bead. And I think I was saying, and just got distracted, if your needles, your little super glue created needles are good, that should be pretty easy. If you find that you're having trouble, then it's possible you didn't go far enough up with the glue. That about a half an inch is really a good length because it gives that whole little area a little bit of stiffness. If you put your glue on too short, then it's a little bit floppy and makes it hard. This is great that this is happening already. This one, I'm finding that I didn't put quite enough glue on there and it's starting to get a little fuzzy at the end. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. This is a brand new tube of glue, but it really doesn't want to come out very easily. And again, with the twist and the wipe. All right, so try again. And if that didn't do the job, I may need to trim it a little bit too. I keep a little pair of scissors handy for this project too. So you might have to do that during this process. If you find that your little needles start to wear out, you might need to just trim and do the glue process again. So you can see the pattern, how the ladder stitching works for this kind of 2-needle style. Now you could, if you've done ladder stitching before, you know that you can just have a needle on one end and go back and forth through your beads and around your cords. And that is perfectly fine. What you end up with is that the wrapping around the outer cords is not symmetrical. You'll have like a kind of a perfectly perpendicular side, and then you'll have a side that wraps around, and then it'll be perpendicular. I hope that makes sense. But maybe I'll demo. Maybe I'll put one on using that technique, and you guys can see what I mean. So in this case, I'm just going to use one needle. This is just a demonstration. And so I've added a bead, and then I'm going to take that thread and wrap it around the cord on the other side and come back through the bead. So that's how you would do this if you were just going to use kind of the one needle technique. And then I tuck in that needle through. And then I would wrap it around to add a second one. So can you see how that looks a little different? Then you'll end up with that. The cord on this side is going to be exactly perpendicular to the leather cord. So it'll give you a little bit of a different look. But for this design, I liked the idea of showing the kind of 2-needle technique. So that's what we used. And it gives you a more symmetrical wrap. The project sheet that we created for this design does have a nice, some demonstration, some figure images so that you can kind of see all the little steps. What did I do with that? Here it is. So at the bottom, there's all these little figure images that show you kind of the different phases of that, stitching that on. So it's pretty easy to get to, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to do. I'm going to do one more. Again, got my bead on, wrapped around the outside edge, and come through the bead from both directions. Terry is asking if there's a bead reamer anyone recommends. I think I just got this one at a craft store. It's a tulip. I'm not quite sure where I got it, but it's a tulip, and it's a great one, and it's got a little a little cap so that you can store it safely. So Tulip is a very reputable brand. What's happened here? I've lost track of where I didn't get my other thread all the way through. I got distracted with the reamer discussion. Tulip is a very reputable brand, so if you can find that one, it probably will hold up well for you. Tulip makes needles. Here's a good thing to show you what just happened. So you see that I'm pulling my threads away to bring my bead up between the cords, but I forgot to wrap it around the leather cord. So that's an easy fix. I'm just going to grab the cord and tuck it in there. Whoops, upside down. Did I do it upside down? It's a pretty easy fix. Because you got to come under and through. And there, it's all fixed. So we've added 5 beads. That's enough to show you the technique, I think. So what I'm going to do now is bring in a board that it's a little bit further along. What I'm going for is Terry saying thank you. She imagines they're mostly fairly equal, but some look cheaply made. I agree. I've seen some pretty kind of cheap ones. So where am I? The original bracelet is your button and link and loop assembly adds and jump rings. Oh, maybe I should point out. The button is just added to one end of the link with a jump ring. That whole assembly is about 2 inches. So this bracelet, the original bracelet, is about a 7.5-inch bracelet, I think. Yeah, right about there is where oops, I don't know if you can see that. Right about here is where the button will sit. So it's about a 7.5-inch bracelet. And I use 5, 10, 15, whoops, 5, 10, 15, 18 beads for that bracelet, for that length. So these are also 6 millimeter, should be about the same, but depending on your beads, that may change a little bit. So my intention here is just to, whoops, let's get these wrapped up and around. My intention here is to add a few more beads to this one and then show you how to finish it off. So this will take a few minutes just to add maybe 3 or 4 more beads. This would be a great time if anybody has any other questions or comments about ladder stitch. It's been kind of popular for a few years and shows no signs. Oh, look. I'm finding on this one that there's a spot where I missed wrapping the thread around the cord again. So how do we fix that? We pull the cord out, thread it through there, and now I have 2, of course, to fix. So I just pull the cord out, thread it under and through, and then it should be okay. You do want to keep your thread tension kind of snug, but not too tight. And you want to be adding the beads so that they're close together, but not crammed up tight against each other. Right now, I'm just kind of going through and pulling on the beads and the thread a little bit to take up some of the looseness. The reason you don't want these beads to be crammed too tightly together here is that you want the bracelet to be able to bend nicely. And you know that if you have beads strung too tightly together, it can make you sacrifice flexibility in the design. Does that make sense? So you want this to bend and curve nicely. So if these are all jammed up tight together, it will affect that. So I'm keeping them close together, but not too tight. And like I said, once you get the hang of this, it can go pretty quickly. And it also gets a little easier as your cord gets a little shorter. When you have the long cords and you're just getting the long threads and you're just getting the hang of it, it kind of feels like the threads are going everywhere and they're getting tangled and they're not going where they should. But once you get the hang of it and get a few beads on there, it all falls together and becomes quite simple. Another thing I could point out is I'm wrapping my threads. Hold on here. I'm wrapping my threads around the outside and then so that they come out in between. You could, of course, also wrap the threads under and around. Either way is fine. This bracelet is going to, it's not going to affect how it looks very much. The trick is then just to be consistent. If you wrap them under and around, fine, just keep going under and around. So just be consistent. If you find that under and around is easier than over and around, then go for it. You can see these fire polish beads, they have this beautiful kind of metallic shimmer on them, and that some of that coating is coming off as I'm wrapping the beads on. All right, so how long is that? Maybe one more. Oh, I think that's good. So 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. We're at the same length as the other one. All right, so this is how we finish this off. We've got enough beads on for the length that we want. I've just added that last bead on. So now I'm going to go ahead and wrap the threads around the cords again. I'm actually going to do a little cheat thing. Not a cheat, really, a tip. I'm just going to clip that with a binder clip so that will stay kind of held together. And I'm going to wrap the threads around the cords a few times like we did up at the top. What I'm doing now is just cinching the leather cords together. Something to keep in mind while you're doing that is, again, I don't want to make this wrap and this knot really tight up to these beads. I want to make sure there's enough room in this channel for those beads to kind of sit comfortably. So I don't want to make it all too tight. So I'm giving this a tiny bit of space down here as I'm securing the cords together. Wrapped around a few times. Everything looks pretty good. I want to pull that tight and then secure it just like I did up at the top with a double overhand knot or a square knot. And the difference with this one, the knot at this end, is that I'm going to add a little tiny drop of super glue before I trim the cords, because I don't want this knot to come undone. That would be disastrous. Hypo cement would work well for this. Whatever little super glue you have will work. E6000 is, come on now. E6000 is more than you need. It's so goopy, I don't think it would work out well here, but the super glue is just fine. There we go. That was an uncooperative glue bottle. So in a perfect world, I let this completely dry before I trim it, right? But in the demo world, sometimes you have to not wait for the glue to dry. So that's it. That's how we finish it off there. I'm ready to unclip this whole thing from my little work surface. And we're all done with our beads. I guess we can go ahead and tie. So to make the button loop, you're just going to take both of those leather cords and wrap them in an overhand knot and secure that. I want to make a loop long enough for my button. This is not a big button. He's kind of little, so maybe about 3/4 of an inch is plenty of room for that button. Do you want to test it before you do all the final pulling and tightening? And you could also add a little bit of super glue here on this knot so that you're sure it's not going to come undone. Once you got your knot nice and tight, then you can trim off that extra length. You could also, what we did when I was teaching this recently was we started by assembling this whole thing. We added the button to the link and then added the jump ring at this end. And then we threaded that leather cord right through the jump ring just to have something to kind of anchor to the table because we were working without, whoops. Okay, where's this one going? This one's going here. We were working without the clipboards. So we assembled this whole bit, this focal section beforehand, and then threaded the leather cord through there. And that gave us all this surface to take down to the table. So you could do that. You could start by assembling the link and the button first. Either way is fine. In this case, we just added it at the end. And the last thing I want to demo about this is if you've watched TierraCast demos before, you've seen that because this metal is pewter and it's a relatively soft metal, you can curve this. You can either use bracelet bending pliers, or you can just use your fingers. Whoops, going the wrong way. Or you can just use your fingers to give these long focal components a gentle curve. If you're using them for a bracelet, that's kind of nice. It gives it a curve that then fits against your wrist kind of nicely. You don't want to be aggressive. You want to go at this very, slowly and gently. Don't really need the bracelet bending pliers. I could be doing this with my fingers as well. And you can see that just gives it a little bit of a curve. In a perfect world, maybe I'd have done this before I added the button so that jump ring wasn't in the way. But if you don't think of it till after, perfectly doable. And there we go. Oh, Elise is saying she does use these 6,000. She just takes a toothpick and puts it tiny, uses a toothpick to get some and put on her tiny knots. So there we go. I like this this pretty check glass bead. I love the earthiness of the rhyolite in the original design, but the check glass gives it a little bit of sparkle, So you could certainly do this with kind of whatever beads you wanted. A faceted gemstone would also be pretty. Crystal, clear crystal would be really nice, or a colored crystal would be very pretty. It's a fun design. It's very easy. It's very customizable. You could certainly, oh wait, before I was about to switch my camera back, but then I remembered that I also pulled out a few months ago. I did a demo of, I think it was when, oh gosh, it's been a while because it was our renewal launch that had that cute little bee button. If you guys have been following TierraCast at all, you may remember the little bee button that we launched a couple of years back. So one of the projects, one of the kits we did was a bracelet that had, and it had a honeycomb link. So we did a bracelet that had a honeycomb link and a bee charm and then the bee button. And so I did a demo where I pulled out a bunch of our other links. And so I thought it would be just fun to show some of those other focal links. And I also have a URL here I'm going to share in the comments, because this design, you could do this ladder stitch and the button and the focal with lots of our other focal links. So we have an infinity link, we have our intermix links, we have the breathe focal and our beautiful Luna moth. This one would be fun because then you could add a dangle at the bottom. Got our little rattlesnake and our lotus, open lotus charm. So I do think that this one, this open lotus, would be really fun against this ladder stitch. So just wanted to show you some of the other, we have a lot of other focal links. So you could certainly customize this design, use this ladder stitch technique with a lot of our other focals and a lot of other cord colors and bead styles. And you could really have a good time with it and do some customization and do some personalization. Gift giving season is, okay, so it's the day after Halloween, right? That means Christmas is here practically. So you may be jumping into your gift making for your friends and family. I'm also going to post a link to our store locator because, as you know, hopefully, if you're somebody who watches our demos, we're a wholesale manufacturer, so we don't sell retail to the public. But we do have a store locator link on our website, which will show you some of our. I'm not sure if it shows where any brick and mortar stores are. If you're lucky, you have a brick and mortar store in your area. And if you're even luckier, they carry TierraCast. But if not, take a look at that store locator and it gives you lots of other retail purchase options. Thanks, you guys. It was fun. I feel like I'm a little bit out of practice, but I think that went okay. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And we'll figure out what we're going to do next week and hopefully get back into the weekly routine. And I'll post that towards the end of the week or on the weekend. So thank you, you guys. And hope everyone is well. And we'll see you soon. Bye.